What's going on, world? My name is Vince Ramon of DeKalb, Illinois, and this is pretty much the second message that I have of claims and allegations against a man named Jim Nicodem from Christ Community Church, who I'm claiming and alleging tried to force me to have sex with one of his congregation members. I'm also claiming and alleging that this man and one of his co-workers harassed me severely and telling me that Jim Nicodem wanted to do sexual things to men in the world. Um, I'm claiming and alleging that this man, Jim Nicodem, told me that he wanted to rape and kill children if it were allowed, and that if he could get away with it. And I'm also alleging and claiming that this man, Jim Nicodem, and his coworker Larry Breeden told me that this man, Jim Nicodem, molested all three, I believe, of his children, and that they were like new toys that he wanted to play with, is what I was told. And this is my allegations and claims against him, Larry Breeden, and other people that I've mentioned in the first message to this. So with that, I'm going to go further in these allegations against some other people, so that way, hopefully, if anyone else has been harassed by any of these people or has proof, that they might come forward, or anything according to my allegations and claims, so that way the world might see any proof that may be out there. I'm also asking for prayer according to these allegations and claims. Even if I am not believed, I believe that God is a God of truth and justice. I'm claiming that he has caused me to be strengthened during all of these years of harassment, is my allegation and claim against these people, and that I've been strengthened with the hope of one day exposing them. And so this is why I am speaking of this publicly now. I'm claiming that I've been thrown out of a courthouse almost, yelled at, and laughed at by a county guard for making public statements and even trying to get something done publicly against this man, as I'm claiming and alleging that I was threatened by a Leroy Mitchell, who I'm about to speak about, that I better not come forward against Jim Nicodem, is my claims and allegations today. So next is, I'm claiming and alleging that I had met Leroy Mitchell around 2005 through some Bible studies, and that around 2016, after this harassment started, which more information is in the first message, I contacted Leroy Mitchell as I was very distraught, I'm claiming and alleging, depressed, broken. My health started failing me, claiming due to this harassment, and especially losing a family member, and that some bad things started to happen and my health started to fail me, and I needed somewhere to go. So I'm claiming and alleging that I contacted Leroy Mitchell with somewhere to stay, and that immediately upon staying at his place, I'm claiming that I was also harassed by him and even his family, which I know sounds weird, but as I mentioned in the first message, this is a very small town, and I'm claiming and alleging against other churches in this town, and that I'm alleging and claiming that Jim Nicodem has, for some reason, such influence among the people in this town that many people have protected him in this, even to the county courthouse, is what I'm claiming and alleging. It is a very small town, and I'm alleging and claiming that there has been very much corruption going on here, which is why I'm speaking about this publicly. And again, even if you don't believe me, I'm asking for prayer to the God of truth and justice according to my allegations and claims, as I'm claiming that I have been strengthened, that one day I might expose him. So next is, as I started to stay with Leroy Mitchell, I'm alleging that I started to be harassed by him for this man, Jim Nicodem, who I am claiming told me that he molested his infant children and wanted to rape and kill children and try to force me sexually upon someone in his congregation, is my allegations against him. I'm claiming that this Leroy Mitchell started to harass me along with his family, and that it surprised me. One thing that hurt me very much, as I mentioned in the first message, is that I was harassed by a church, the Rock Church in DeKalb, Illinois, and that being harassed by Leroy Mitchell hurt me in a different way. I'm going to say that because they were people of color and black, it hurt me in a different way. But I'm also going to say that I do love all people. I feel very close to white, black, Mexican people. But for some reason, I've gone over this with God, is that I have a I think I grew up with some sort of a complex that hit me later in life because I grew up in a very white suburb and went to very white schools. And although I have friends of all races, and it does not matter to me about the race when it comes to having a close friend or anything like that, but I think I had somewhat of a complex in that the only time I was really around solely people of color is when I like went back home for like a family party or something like that. So later on, as I came to a place where I was going to a white church where I'm claiming and alleging in Christ community, mostly white church, where I started to be harassed, that some of that complex started to affect me later when I was started to be harassed, I'm alleging and claiming, by Leroy Mitchell and his family, being people of color and people from the Rock Church. And I'm alleging that it just hurt me in a different way, felt kind of like a stab in the back. And again, it didn't matter to me so much about race, but it just kind of hit me with the complex, kind of hit me where I live, so to speak. And I had already been harassed, I'm alleging, by Jim Nicodem so much because I was attempted to be forced by him and some people in his church, I'm alleging, to have sex with someone that I did not want to. And it ended up being, I found out later while I was staying at Leroy Mitchell's, I'm claiming and alleging, that the person that Jim Nicodem, I'm alleging, wanted to force me to have sex with ended up being Leroy Mitchell's ex-son's ex-girlfriend. So I'll say that again, not to make it confusing, that this man, Jim Nicodem, was trying to force me to have sex with a woman from his church, and that woman ended up being Leroy Mitchell's son's ex-girlfriend, is my allegation and claim from way back in the day. So for some reason, I'm alleging that Leroy Mitchell decided to join Jim Nicodem in Jim Nicodem's harassment of me, and it got really bad because I thought Leroy Mitchell was like a friend, and he even let me into his house to stay there while I was going through a hard time, I'm claiming. And the harassment just came out of such nowhere that it really hurt and really bad. I needed somewhere safe to go, and it obviously was not a safe place to me, is what I'm claiming. And alleging against him, I'm claiming that Leroy Mitchell and his family harassed me and some of the same things that Jim Nicodem would say against me and give me a very hard time because I would not allow myself to be forced to have sex with this woman, Chrystal Harness, which I'm claiming is Leroy Mitchell's son's ex-girlfriend. I'm going to make the claim and allegation that at one time while I was there at his house for the middle of 2016, I believe August it was, until the end of 2018, December, that Leroy's son, George Joseph Mitchell, who is the current pastor of New Hope Church on Twomley Road in DeKalb, I'm going to make the allegation and claim that George Joseph Mitchell, while him and his family and Leroy Mitchell and his wife were harassing me, that at one moment I'm alleging George Joseph Mitchell forced me to like honor him in a moment that was so weird. I was in the kitchen, I'm alleging, washing dishes, and George Joseph Mitchell began to walk out from one of the rooms out of the house, and he wanted me to like say hi to him. And I'm alleging that I was so angry and distraught about being stuck in this situation that I did not want to even talk to him or say hi to him. So really quick, before I continue with this story, I'm going to say this really quick. I know this might seem weird to anyone out there, but again, I feel like God strengthened me to go through this so that one day I might expose these people on why I wouldn't just leave, why I wouldn't just go do something else. And at this point, I was really distraught and almost had nowhere to go. And two, I can almost relate and kind of understand more on how people might be caught up in a domestic violence situation or something like that and feel like forced to stay and then one day be free from it and be like, what? You know, so distraught that it even happened. And I speak with respect to women or anyone that's had that happen in their lives or in their families. I speak with the utmost respect, but I can kind of understand a little bit of that just mental and spiritual oppression, even as a man, that God strengthened me at this time to be able to withstand these people's harassment, that I might expose them one day. So that's how my situation is a little bit different. But I can sympathize with anyone that's been through domestic violence. I think I understand that a little bit better. But my situation's a little bit different in that God strengthened me so that one day I might expose these people for how they harassed me and what they were trying to tell me, and hopefully maybe even gain some proof and totally expose them if anyone else has been harassed by these people in the same way. So, again, back to the story that I was saying, there was one day in this time that I was staying at Leroy Mitchell's house that his son, George Joseph Mitchell, wanted to force me to, like, honor him, it seemed like. It just didn't seem right to me. And as he was leaving, he just kept telling me to, like, I'm claiming and alleging that he kept telling me to, like, look towards him and, like, acknowledge him when I did not want to speak to him, I'm alleging. And that it just seemed so weird. And then finally, I just felt forced, since I was in their house still, to, like, say something to them. Like, I'm alleging, like, hey, what's up? I'm alleging that he laughed, and that once I was finally forced to acknowledge him, that he began to harass me and telling me that I was shameful, that I was nothing for not allowing myself to be forced to have sex with his ex-girlfriend from back in the day, Chrystal Harness. He began to make fun of me, I'm alleging, for my health starting to fail me, and for not honoring this man, Jim Nicodem, is my allegation against George Joseph Mitchell, who is the current pastor of New Hope Church on Twomley Road in DeKalb, Illinois. And that I was very distraught over these things, very broken over these things, as I had already been harassed by different pastors and people in the community, even I'm alleging a Jason Draper, while my sister was dying. And so this was very distracting to me. I'm going to allege that in this time, that Leroy Mitchell and George Joseph Mitchell, that their family would harass me. And this is going to seem very strange. It's going to be a little bit disgusting to say, not so explicit, but I'm going to say it anyway, because this just brings light, I'm alleging, to some of the harassment that's been done to me. And one thing that the Mitchells I'm alleging, was caused to harass me in is that my health started to fail me. And I'm alleging that years before that, I was running and working out a little bit. And I have respect for people who run and work out, and I sympathize, even before this happened, before my health started to fail me, with anyone who may not have been in the best health for any reason in life. But I can say that at this time, that I'm alleging that George Joseph Mitchell and Leroy Mitchell would start to harass me, and it was just one other sick thing I'm alleging, as I've made allegations that many sick things had been told to me and had happened to me. I'm making the claims and allegations. So this is one very strange, sick thing that started to happen to me, is that they started to harass me, and sometimes when I would go to the bathroom in their house, this is going to be very strange, so you may not want to hear this, but if you have the stomach for it, when I would go to the bathroom in their house, they would leave pieces of excrement, number 2, in the toilet. And then after I would be forced to flush that and come out of the bathroom, they would laugh at me. I'm claiming that George Joseph Mitchell allowed this even of his 15-year-old or 14-year-old daughter at the time, 14, 15-year-old daughter. And I'm alleging that they would laugh at me and that they would tell me that I was nothing for not being forced to have sex with Joe Mitchell's ex-girlfriend, Chrystal Harness, and for not honoring this man, Jim Nicodem, who wanted to force these things upon me and told me that he molested his children and wanted to rape and kill children, even, is my allegations against the Mitchells and against Jim Nicodem. And so these things were very distraught. It was like so tweaked out weird, but somehow God strengthened me. I'm making the allegations it was tweaked out and weird. I'm making the allegations that it was so weird that it was like something out of the Twilight Zone. I'm not allowed to say these are facts, but I'm making the allegations that it was like something out of the Twilight Zone, something so very depressing, something like being almost like a human slave, almost, but not totally allowed to leave the situation, because I still felt strengthened by God that somehow one day I might expose these people And at this point, my life was headed such a dark place that I'm alleging that my health even started to fail me and I had almost nowhere to go. So I'm making the allegation and claim that this really happened, that I would leave the bathroom and that pieces of excrement would have been left in there before I got there. I'd be forced to flush it, and I'm making the allegation and claim that after I would come out that the Mitchells would harass me for not being in the same shape I used to be in, and because I would not allow myself to be forced to have sex with Joe Mitchell's ex-girlfriend, Chrystal Harness. And that these things would be told to me and I would be laughed at. And instead of getting in a fight and knowing I had nowhere to go, but even if not, instead of getting in a fight, I just felt like God gave me an incredible strength and a hope that one day I might be able to expose all of this. Even at that time, it was so confusing and I didn't know how. I just didn't see an open door. And now I'm hoping that this might be that open door. So these are my allegations and claim against the Mitchells, and that this went on for a year and a half and things were so bad. I'm claiming that during this time I was near beaten by someone in DeKalb, Illinois, and laughed at by the store manager at that time. This is my allegation and claim. Laughed at by the store manager, and I just did not, it was just so disgusting to me. Like, it just didn't really mean to me what these people wanted from me. So that way I just did not care to the point that I'm making the allegation and claim that it seemed like these people cared about. Like, I was just so sick and fed up with these things that I'm making the allegation and claim I just wanted it to be over somehow, and I did not see the open door, but that I was hoping and strengthened by God that one day that open door might come. So I'm hoping this may be that opportunity by asking for prayer from the public. Even if you don't believe me, I'm asking for prayer to the God of truth and justice. God says in his word that we will reap what we sow, and I'm not afraid to make these public statements and claims, allegations, because God says that we will reap what we sow. And I have such a strength and a hope that through prayer, that anything that even if people don't believe, that God's truth and justice will come to light according to my allegations and claims even. And I'm not afraid because I know that God says that we will reap what we sow. So I can't say that what I'm saying is facts, and I can't say that, but I can say that I trust the God of truth and justice, and that one day his truth and justice will be told. And so I want to keep it straight on the allegations and claims, and especially on YouTube, so I'll just say that. So I'm going to say that this harassment was so bad for a year and a half, I'm alleging and claiming against the Mitchells, and it was so, I'm alleging and claiming so tweaked out, so weird, but I'm claiming that I was just strengthened and go through it somehow, some way. And at the end of 18, I was caused to leave their place to have my own place for a year. And then in March or June of 2019, March or April, I want to say, of 2019, I ended up going back to the Mitchells, which I know seems weird to say that, especially after what I've just said. But I'm claiming that as weird as it was and as heartbreaking, I'm alleging and claiming as it was to me, I still felt strengthened that this was not over yet, and I needed to be able, I'm alleging, to prove this to the world one day that this really happened. So after that, I ended up going back to the Mitchells around 2019, and I didn't know anything. Now, something weird before going back to the Mitchells, I'm alleging and claiming, and this is something that I want to say, is that around February, January, February, I believe maybe March, not too long before going back there, I'm alleging that I went to visit their church, that somehow I just felt strengthened to go to their church anyway, I'm claiming, at New Hope Church on Twomley and DeKalb. And as I had been harassed by their family, and I'm claiming, alleging, I knew that it was a bad idea, I'm going to allege that I went there anyway, just because I'm saying and claiming that I was strengthened in God to go anyway, in hopes that one day I might prove some things and to kind of sit through it. That is my allegation against these people. So as I went to their church, I'm claiming and alleging nothing really happened too much out of the ordinary. I'm going to allege that I did not feel too much strengthened or am at peace with God's Spirit there at all. But I sat through it waiting for what the day might bring. I'm alleging. And my next allegation is something that's a little hard to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because I have trust in God that it needs to be said. I'm just going to say that. At the end of the service, I'm going to make the allegation, claim that I was confronted by George Joseph Mitchell's 15-year-old daughter, who I'm alleging I had been harassed by along with him and his family while I was staying with Leroy Mitchell in the year previous. And that when I was confronted by his daughter, I made the allegation in the first part of this message, in the first message before this, that I was harassed by a Larry Breeden while he was holding on to the hand of his 1 or 2 year old granddaughter. And that when he did, I'm making the allegation that Larry Breeden harassed me very severely and some very sick things that were said to me. And that when I was harassed by George Joseph Mitchell's 15-year-old daughter, that they both did something very similar, which just seemed very spiritually dark to me. I'm going to make the claim and allegation, which is something that I forgot to mention in the first message, that when Larry Breeden harassed me, is my allegation against him while he was holding the hand of his 1 or 2 year old granddaughter, which is the daughter of claiming a Brandon Matheny, who I was also somewhat harassed by, I'm alleging, and I did not mention that in the first message, of Brandon Matheny, who is also part of Christ Community Church. With the allegation I'm making is that Larry Breeden made a very weird body movement while I was being harassed by him, I'm alleging, to be forced to have sex with this woman, Chrystal Harness. And it was almost like he really arched his back really weird and stuck out his backside, his butt, in a really weird way that just seemed unnormal for a person to do in a normal conversation. And he also said the words that I'm alleging, he said the words, maybe this is the year, maybe this will be the year. And that seems strange to me. Like, no, I'm not going to follow these commands that I'm being harassed by, is my allegation and claim against these people. That he arched his back in a very abnormal way in a normal conversation, and it seemed very strange to me. And so somehow, some way, whether it was just through the same spiritual darkness, I want to say, of being involved in the same thing the Bible says not to share in someone's sin. And I know in the world we struggle and we need help in the world in different ways, but I believe I'm alleging and claiming that I'm alleging that this was so dark that it almost seemed like maybe this just happened out of the same spiritual darkness, is my allegation. But when I was confronted by George Joseph Mitchell's 15-year-old daughter, as I had been harassed by her already previously, I'm claiming in the year leading up to that, is that I'm alleging that she arched her back in the same way. And I'm claiming and alleging that she did not even say any human words to me, that she just made some sound. And it was really weird, is my allegation, and just smiled. And I'm alleging it was just very arrogant, very abnormal, very weird. And it made me very distraught to see that and to have to go through that right there in the middle of the church. I'm alleging that I looked around and that it was like people, I'm alleging, if you go through a situation and you look around and it's like people are watching, people know what's going on. This is my allegation against the church and some of the people that were at the church that day. I can name George Joseph Mitchell's wife, Andrea, who is a principal here in DeKalb, Illinois, that I'm alleging that she was watching. And I'm alleging that it was like she was looking at me like in shame, like something's wrong with me for not being forced to do the things that I've been harassed by, I'm alleging. And I also look to the other side, and I'm alleging that I saw Leroy Mitchell look at me like I'm shameful because I had been harassed by this family and these people for so long for not being forced to have sex with a woman named Chrystal is my allegation against them. I'm alleging that he turned and walked away like something was wrong with me while his 15-year-old granddaughter was harassing me in some very weird, abnormal, spiritually dark way is my allegation. It was like something out of like the Twilight Zone. It was so tweaked out, I'm claiming, and making the allegation. And that I left the church that day so broken, so distraught. I'm alleging that I looked and other people were watching and just laughing is my allegation against. I can name one person. I don't know the name of the person, but I do remember that the person who was laughing, I'm alleging, was their worship leader for that day. And that was just very, very unnerving, made me very distraught, made me very depressed. And so I left the church that day, and that was around February, March, somewhere around there. And then April, May or something, I don't know, maybe even March. I might have my months off a little bit. It was a very distressing time. But I went back to the Mitchells a couple months later, and I was staying there again out of some brokenness. I was near homeless again. I had been harassed by people in the community. I had been harassed by some people. I'm claiming and alleging that I had been severely harassed. I'm claiming and alleging that I had even been harassed by people on the job, and that people were saying things to me and about me, and it made me very distraught. And it was hard for me to keep my place, and it was just a very hard thing to go through is what I'm alleging and claiming. I'm alleging that that it's a very small town, so it's not hard for me to believe. It's not hard for me to see that I went through these things. It's a very small town, and I'm alleging and claiming that it's a very small town corruption thing going on. I have no problem with small towns, but I'm claiming and alleging that this is a very small town corruption thing that was going on. And it's just like, it was funny. It's been funny to certain people is what I'm claiming and alleging. And it's been a very hard time, which is why I'm asking for prayer. So what I'm claiming is, after going back to the Mitchells, is that I did not know what had happened, and let me see. I knew that I was missing something. I went back to the Mitchells in 19, the beginning of 19, and when I say a couple months, it was the year after that. I was at their church in 2018, and in July of 2018, something happened with their granddaughter, and so it was the year after that, and it was still not far from a winter time when I had visited their church in the year, but it was in early 2018 I had visited their church, and in 2019 I went back to stay with them. So forgive me for that. But these are my allegations and claims, and I can only say that these are my allegations and claims and what happened. And upon being back at their place, I did not know anything had happened, anything out of the ordinary that had happened with their family, only that I'm alleging I was still harassed by their family. And I had to go for a knee surgery, which is one main reason why I went there, because I had nowhere to stay while I had to go for a major knee surgery. And I'm alleging and claiming that the harassment continued while I was there, but that I never saw George Joseph Mitchell this time, and it seemed odd to me at this point. And this was right before the surgery in, I think, June or July of 2019. I have it on my chart, but things have just been so crazy right now that I'm just not too worried about all that. Sorry, I've been a little distraught and getting ready to say this. So as I was going for my surgery, for my knee surgery that I really needed in June or July of 2019, I was told by a Leroy Mitchell that I'm alleging and claiming that his granddaughter had died, and that she was found dead. The same granddaughter that I'm alleging and claiming harassed me at the church the year previous. I'm alleging and claiming that she died, and that I was told that she died, and that she died for no medical reason, is what I was told. And so that had seemed odd to me. And what I'm alleging and claiming that also seemed odd to me is that from the time that I was staying with him from 2016 to the end of 2017, and I think I might have gotten the dates wrong now that I'm trying to think about this. I had stayed with him from the middle of 2016 to the end of 2017, December. I might have said a different year earlier, but when I was staying with him, I also told him that what he was doing to me was wrong. Different people in the church. I'm sorry for making this confusing, for messing that up. I'm very distraught. I'll just say that. If anyone is questioning how I got mixed up, I'm just thinking about it right now. I'm very distraught. It was hard for me to even speak these things, but I know that I stayed with the Mitchells from the middle or August of 2016 to the end of 2017. Got my own place until around March or April of 2019, and all of 2018 I had my own place. And in the beginning of 2018 is when I went to go visit their church. So now that I'm thinking about that a little more clearly, trying to let go of some of the anxiety of speaking about this, now it comes out clearly. In the first few months of 2018 is when I had went to visit their church, and in July of 2018 is when I was told that Leroy Mitchell's granddaughter died. So when I was staying with them from the middle of 2016 to 2017, I had talked to Leroy Mitchell, and I had told him that what had happened, what they're doing is wrong. I tried to maybe talk sense into him. I was very angry, distraught, but I tried to maybe shock him into reality, is what I'm alleging and claiming. And I had prophesied to him, and I had prophesied to him before, years back, and I told him what he's doing is wrong. I'm just going to say really quick that I have the gift of prophecy in the Bible. There's different gifts. And that I have a gift of prophecy, and I prophesied to him, which is not just, a lot of the gift of prophecy isn't actually prophesying of the future, but it's understanding, interpreting, explaining God's word. But I also have somewhat of a gift of prophecy, and I had prophesied to him that what he's doing is wrong, and that it shouldn't happen, and that what if, something happened to his family, that something might happen to his family. And I mentioned something about his family being in the next room, and that what he was doing was very wrong. And I know that I'm alleging that I had prophesied to him of these things, and that I'm alleging that I had said these things, and that was that, and then I left, and I went to visit their church, and I'm alleging these things actually happened, and I was harassed by this girl at the church in this weird way. And that after going back to his house, I was told by him, and it was just weird to me, I'm alleging, because it took over a month for him to tell me. Not that he had to tell me, but if we were normal friends, I would think, I'm alleging, that he would tell me. And it was over a month, and then I was told on the way to the hospital, I'm alleging, to get my knee surgery, that his granddaughter died. And I had just prophesied to him about that a year and a half or whatever earlier, and maybe a little over a year and a half or whatever, when I'd stopped staying with them. And it was just really weird to me. I'm alleging and claiming, and so that was very, very distressing to go through that. It was a very hard time to go through that, and but I'm alleging and claiming that it was something that happened, and that I'm alleging and claiming that the hatred before I left his house at this time was just even seemed sometimes even worse. Not that it could be worse from what it was, I'm alleging and claiming, but that it seemed even worse at this point sometimes, and that I'm going to make the allegation and claim that one night before leaving his house that I was threatened by him. And that's my allegation against him, is that I was threatened by him not to go forward to the police. And it seemed that he was very angry that night, I'm alleging. And I could understand that he would hate me, but I could also understand that the hatred is not my fault, is what I'm alleging. Okay, I could see how he could hate me wrongfully, I'm alleging. I could see how he'd have some feelings, but I'm alleging that it's not my fault that he hates me, that I'm alleging that he decided to join Jim Nicodem and Jim Nicodem's harassment against me in these things, in these ungodly things. I'm alleging that he chose to use his granddaughter to harass me and look at me like I'm wrong. And then after I prophesied to him, his granddaughter does die. I'm alleging these two things. And, well, she did die. And I know that might seem heartless to say that, but I'm alleging that his hatred towards me is unjust, is what I'm alleging. And that one night, I'm alleging that he was very hateful, and that he almost like took it out on me, that his granddaughter died. And it was very weird, because it started out almost like he was really like sad that his granddaughter died, and he told me some things. I'm alleging that he told me some things, and I'm alleging that, and this is hurtful to say, because, this might be hard for anyone to hear, because I wouldn't want to hear it, and I don't want to say it, but I'm alleging that he told me that Jim Nicodem, now, according to my allegations, it's not hard for me to understand this, because I've already alleged of such weird way out things that I'm alleging Jim Nicodem told me. And I'm alleging that Jim Nicodem, in his arrogance, told Leroy Mitchell, I'm alleging I was told by Leroy Mitchell, that maybe I shouldn't say arrogance. Maybe I should strike that from the record. I don't know if it's legal to say that. Maybe I should just say that Jim Nicodem, I'm alleging, told Leroy Mitchell, I'm alleging that it would be humbling to Leroy Mitchell and his family if they would leave pieces of excrement in the toilet and harass me. That it would be humbling to them, and that Jim Nicodem would find it humbling for them and their family, and that they should harass me that way. I'm alleging I was told that by Leroy Mitchell. And now again, earlier, I had already felt like I was stabbed in the back by these people. Not that I love people of color any more than I love white people, but I'm alleging this was very distressing to me to hear this from this person. Because I did have some type of complex from growing up around a white suburb and only being around people of color when I went home from a family party. Not that I love any certain race less or more, but I had some type of a complex, so it was hurtful to be hurt by the Mitchells, just in a different way. I want to say, now that I understand it better, in a different way, it was hurtful. So for me, that was very hurtful to hear that I'm alleging to hear from Leroy Mitchell that it was supposed to be humbling to him and his family to do that, and to hear a little bit of distress in his voice. I'm alleging that his granddaughter died, but then also I'm alleging to hear him almost confess that it was his fault, but I'm alleging that after that it was like a weird movie, like something out of the Twilight Zone again, that immediately after that I'm alleging that he raised up in anger, not raised up from where he was sitting, but raised up in anger and started to accuse me again. I'm alleging of being wrong for not honoring Jim Nicodem's ungodly commands. I'm alleging that I was threatened by him immediately after that not to go forward against Jim Nicodem, or he would have friends in the courthouse, he would have people in the courthouse and even in the police protect him. And I'm alleging that, I'm going to speak of this later, that when I did go to the courthouse, some bad things happened. I'm making the allegations. So that's my allegations for this message. My next message, I will speak of something very strange happened on how I was confronted. I'm alleging that I was confronted by a woman, a 21-year-old woman named Maria Lama. I'm alleging that I was also arrested later on, but that there was a moment in time. I'm going to leave this for God to make clear, or I'm alleging that I'm going to leave this for God to make clear, or I'm alleging that I'm going to leave this for Maria Lama to confess to, if she were willing to confess the truth according to my allegations. I can't say that they're facts, so that's kind of a weird thing to say, but I'm going to allege that that I was confronted by Maria Lama at a brief moment before being arrested here in DeKalb, Illinois, and that I'm alleging that I had no idea who this woman was or how she knew me. But being in a small town, I'm alleging that it did not seem that weird to me at this point, that it only angered and distressed me. I'm alleging that I was confronted by a woman I did not know or know how she knew me, and that I was harassed by this woman in not honoring Jim Nicodem's commands. And to me, it was kind of like, again, kind of like something that happened at, I'm alleging, at New Hope Church when I last saw the Leroy Mitchell, who died after harassing me, which is a hard thing to say in this world, but I feel under God I have to say it due to what I've gone through according to my allegations in all of this ungodly harassment. So I'm going to make the next message about being harassed. I'm alleging by a woman named Maria Lama with her young daughter, allegedly harassing me to not honor Jim Nicodem's commands, and that I was very angered and distressed over this. I'm going to allege corruption in the county courthouse and tell the story more fully of the county courthouse and some things about the police. And I'm going to allege in the next message on how I'm not that surprised at this point on the corruption in the courthouse and the police, as I'm going to also make an alleged story of something that happened in 2003 where I did get into a fight, and I'm alleging the wisdom and common sense from God to know that something happened in 2003, and the wisdom and common sense to remember that that night something told me not to go out and drinking, and the pain that I had and just being a little careless and not as careful that time in life, going out and getting into a fight. I'm going to make the allegation that there was strong police corruption that night after getting into a fight, and that I may even be able to get proof from the court that I'm still working on getting if it is allowed to me. So I'm going to make the allegation of that, of strong police corruption. I'm going to make the allegation of speaking to the judge that I gave knowledge to, I'm alleging, of that police corruption in 2003, and I'm going to make the allegation of speaking to that judge or trying to contact that judge about these corrupt things at this time before she left her seat in this county courthouse not too long ago. So I'm going to make those allegations in the next message or two. So again, if you've heard these things, and I hope that you might have had the patience to go through this. I'm sorry for making anything confusing. It's very hard to speak about these things right now, but I've hoped and prayed for years that I might be able to publicly expose these allegations. I'm going to say allegedly. I've hoped and prayed for years that I might be able to expose these things that I'm alleging against these people. And overall, as the Bible says, above anything else, pray. I'm asking for prayer according to my allegations and claims, that the God who sees and says that anything done in darkness will be brought to light. I'm asking for prayer for God's truth and justice, even if you don't believe me, according to my allegations and claims, that God would break through any belief or unbelief that is heard or thought of in these messages. So God, I pray for that, and I simply pray for truth and justice, even according to my allegations and claims. Amen. I hope you've had the patience to listen, and I hope that there is prayer added to this by others. The Bible says, by the prayers of many we make it through. So I hope you had the patience, and I hope that you have the willingness to pray if you've heard these things. Amen.